One of the big stories in the Sun newspaper today, in fact, it's the story on page 10, is the battle at the very heart of the British racing slash gambling slash betting shop industry, something very close to my heart. We say a very good morning to Steve Hawkes, Head of External Affairs at Flutter UK, an ex-Sun man. Stevie, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Jeremy. How are you? I don't think I've seen you for about a decade when we were on that Sun Employment roadshow.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say something else. Hanging out at Cheltenham, losing lots of money. Yeah. Good to see you, my friend. I wanted you to put it into layperson's terms. You notice what I did there? Political correctness at its worst.
Exactly.
This betting tax that Rachel Reeves is contemplating bringing in on the 26th of November, and I'm a supporter of national hunt racing and flat racing, and I'll stand and argue with anybody, is going to decimate, is it not, betting shops, the industry as a whole, the revenue, jobs and everything, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd concur with quite a lot of that. I mean, my chief executive, Peter Jackson's writing in the paper today. If you look closely enough, you can see it there. And it's where the government is, as well as all the other taxes that legal licensed regulated businesses pay, bookies also pay a 15% duty on sports bets and a 21% duty on gaming. That could be anything like online bingo, poker, roulette, etc. The government has talked about, originally it talked about harmonising rates, to have a simplified rate. Now, obviously, in government language, that would mean a higher rate. It wouldn't mean a lower one. So that could be moving sports up to 21 or moving everything up 25, 30, etc. Where you've seen people like Gordon Brown and think tanks who basically don't like gambling, they've been talking about moving the gaming duty up as high as 50. So that's 138% tax rise. They've been talking about moving sports up to 25, which is a 67% tax rise. Overall, taking as much as £3 billion out of a sector that already pays £4 billion in tax. So that would clearly have an impact. We, as a gambling operator, we have one pot of money. So if you tax one bit by a lot, that's going to impact what we can invest elsewhere. It's not a free hit. It will threaten jobs. It will threaten investment. It will threaten the high street bookie, as you say. And it'd be a jackpot for the black market, unlicensed, illegal sites that you can find all over the internet that don't pay tax and don't invest in safer gambling.
And what's really interesting, that last phrase, and I'm glad you used it, safer gambling, because the people like Gordon Brown and others who find gambling abhorrent, that is their opinion. My problem with, and if you noticed, bookies over the last, all betting outlets over the last 2 or 3 years have put that emphasis on safer gambling. If you look at any of the apps and any of the adverts, it's all about, you know, as much control as can be bought. But we also have to come to that whole thing, which is freedom of choice. And we live in a society now where people like Gordon Brown would want to say, I'm telling you, you shouldn't gamble because you either can't handle it or it's not good for you. Personal free choice needs to be involved in that. You're right, Peter Jackson, your boss, saying we'll see a massive shift to the illegal black market. And my argument would simply be this: if people who want to gamble go to the black market, there will be no controls. It will not be safe for gambling, and people will find themselves in a far worse position, surely, than they are right now in an industry that is becoming more and more regulated. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're arguing now. People would say that you're scaremongering, but you're seeing this across Europe. For example, in Holland, there was a survey about 2 months ago showing that the illegal market is now bigger than the legal market, and that was due to a combination of regulation and higher taxes. And look, we're not saying you can't regulate the sector. We're seeing a lot of it. You know, we had 2 years ago the Gambling Act review under the Tory government. You know, where they introduced 62 different work streams: affordability checks, financial vulnerability controls, lower limits on stakes for slot games. We have had tougher regulation. We commissioned a survey last month where we got a guy to do some mystery shopping on the black market. He was able to open an account as Bo Peep, a 7-year-old, and bet on the basketball in America. He was able to open an account as 213-year-old Charles Dickens and sit back and punt on Lingfield. You know, and that's the sort of funny edge of it. You know, there are no controls, no verification. They actually target people who have self-excluded, people who say, you know what, I think I need to check out of betting for a while. And you'll see online non-GamStop casino sites that is specifically targeting self-excluded and vulnerable players.
I'll tell you a little story, actually, because years and years ago I bet too much, right? Everybody knows that, right? But I have I'm just saying, I have the Coral app. I'll tell you about the talkTV app later as well. But I have the Coral app, and something that's happened in the last 2 months, which is really interesting, is they now have how much you've spent on a monthly basis against how much you've had back, and shows you profit or loss, and thus they have a situation where I think if you start to show that you're losing a lot, somebody will contact you and you'll get an email and we're going to do this. That is never ever happened before. It shows that the industry is caring about itself, but it's never going to happen on the black market. The Sun backing our Save Our Bets campaign. They're going to sponsor the 220 race on the Saturday. The Sun Save Our Races Novices Chase. Obviously, it would be good to find a winner. We'll do that at a later date. I can't overemphasise how much to the industry this tax, not just the betting industry, but the racing industry as a whole, is terrified about this, and we need to, I think, get away from it. It's like the people who say horse racing's cruel. People will have that opinion. There will be people who don't like betting. It's a huge industry, and I know the racing industry is very scared, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And just to correct you, Jeremy, it's a Save Our Bets Novices Stakes tomorrow at Cheltenham, 220. It's going to be bigger than the Grand National, you know.
Tomorrow? Sorry,
tomorrow.
I didn't realise, sorry.
I think they would have done a sweepstake, but there's only 6 runners.
Who's the favourite?
I think I can't pronounce it, but there is a horse in there called One Big Bang, which seems to be appropriate for the budget. And there's also Pony Soprano, which tickled me.
One Big Bang. There we go. We'll go with that.
One Big Bang.
Yeah.
You know, I think, look, to your point about racing, they are obviously very worried. We've seen in the last 5 days, I think it is, we've had 3 one-horse races, literally where a horse has pulled out.
It's true.
And so we've had 3 one-horse races, which doesn't show an industry that's thriving. It has done well. There are more people going through the doors at racecourses this year, but it's an industry that needs, it needs support. And I think the government is aware of that. And what we would say, you can't protect racing, but still put tax up by 138% on another part of our business. There would be a fallout. There would be an impact across the board.
Really interesting article. Page 10 today, our battle to stop the racing tax raid. Peter Jackson, Flutter's boss. There you heard from Steve Hawke. Stevie, great to see you, my friend. Thank you so much indeed.